watching you all, having a chat. I'm just as bad. I'm sitting there going, I'd be exactly the same. I don't know where my camera is either. That's why I've got a producer, which is brilliant because he knows all the tech stuff. I just do all the fun stuff, which works for me. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. We've just done a 1-hour class on the SDX. I've had a day full of teaching today, which has been wonderful. So we're going to start right at the beginning. So when we decided to do these classes, said to Stephanie, I want to do a free class every month, and she's doing the same with her painting pages. It's for absolute beginners who have never used a ScanNCut or have used it once and put it back in the box. And I'm determined that everybody that's bought one, which is tens of thousands of people, I have to say, is going to get them out and start using them, because you've done the difficult bit of buying one. You've afforded to buy one, and now you're not using it. That makes me a little bit sad. And it makes me a bit sad because as a crafter who now understands the full potential of this machine, I don't want anybody missing out on that, because it's fun. You just have to learn the basics. So today, what we're going to do tonight is literally out of the box experience, making your first cut, because I've got to start right at the beginning. I have to, when you're doing a class like this, I have to really rein myself in, because I want to go and show you all sorts of stuff, but it's too big. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. So if you're already using your ScanNCut, you might not learn anything in this first class, but I'm sure that by the time we get to the end, and it will take as long as it takes, however many months it takes, to get to the stage where I've taught you everything that I know so far. So we could be here for a few years. You will know exactly. And every time you do something, you'll learn something new, which is great. So if I'm boring, for those of you that know exactly what you're doing, I apologize, but I have to start at ground zero, because otherwise there'll be somebody who goes, I don't even know how to switch it on. So that's where we're at. And at some point, none of us knew how to switch it on, because when I got mine, I had 7 days to learn the basics of it before I flew to America and launched it to the world, which was quite scary. But it made me get it out of the box. And I totally get it, because I have a sewing machine at home that's never been out of the box because I'm scared of threading it. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that? But I am determined. But the other thing is that I know if I get it out and I love it, and then I won't have time to use it, and I'll find that frustrating. Well, that's my excuse anyway. So first things first, I'm going to work on a CM700 because it's that mid-range. So the first machine that ever came out was a CM600. And I was the first person to go, why do I need a scanner in a cutting machine? That's ridiculous. And then one of the first days I was trying to learn this, and I was doing prep for other shows. And I can remember exactly what I was doing. I was doing a Sarah Kay stamp from Stamper V, and I'd got all these little paper flowers, and I needed a flourish that just went in the corner just to finish off the card. And I went through all my Cricut cartridges, and I went through all my punches and all my dies, and I didn't have anything. I thought, well, it's only a basic flourish. Why have I not got one? So I got a Sharpie pen and I drew one, and I scanned it in, and it cut it out. And I scanned it in again, and I saved it, and it cut it out of the cardstock that I wanted. And then I went, wow, okay, now I know why I need a scanner in a cutting machine. Very much like the Caterpillar. Why do I lead a light on a trimmer? And you've got one, you use it all the time. So absolute basics out of the box. When you take your machine out of the box and you open up the front cover, there will be loads of packaging all around it, blue tape, cardboard, etc., etc. You can get rid of all of that. But underneath your machine in the box, there is a brown cardboard box. It'll have your electrics in, it'll have your instruction manual in. Don't even bother with that because it's all gobbledygook. Didn't make any sense to me at all. So that's what we're going to do on these classes. You'll also get a little white wallet that has your blade in. Now, it depends how long you've had it. It might come with the cap on, it might not. So if it looks like this, you're good to go. If it comes with like a little white cap over the top, take that off. And it will also come with your stylus and your spatula in there as well. So those are the tools that you get included with your machine. You'll also get a mat in there. That's your mat for your cutting mat, okay? The first thing I want you to do when you take your blade out of the box is tighten it as tight as it will go. So to do that, we just twist it round towards number 12 on the label. And I want you to make sure that the line that's underneath the Brother logo on that label lines up with the number 12, because this is your blade depth. So this is how far down this unit the blade starts before any pressure is put on top of it. That white line needs to line up with number 12, because if it goes past it or before it, it's not a true blade depth. And then you'll end up cutting something or not cutting something, and you'll get frustrated. So first thing we do is make sure that that lines up to number 12. If it doesn't, take this little sticker off, line that number 12 up under that line and put the sticker back on. Okay, that's the best I can give you, because then you know you're working with a true blade depth and you won't get frustrated with it. The other thing that I want you to do, and you might think, well, why have they not done this anyway? So Brother had a decision to make. When we used to use Cricut, the one with the cartridges, they had a blade, and it was like 1 through to 6, and you clicked you moved it, and a ball bearing moved, and it went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. Brother decided to do it a little bit differently, and they've put a thread on. So instead of having just 1 to 6, you've got anywhere from 1 right the way around. So you've got 1 right the way around at any increment you want, right the way around, because it's on the thread system. So that bit's good. What you might find, and you might not find it straight away, but as time goes by, the vibration from the machine, especially when you're cutting something quite intricate, it vibrates very, very slightly. You won't see it, but the machine will feel it. And what it can do is it can move the number down. So it can turn this bit and move the number down. And you'll find that it's cutting in one place and not in another. So what I did was I took a piece of low-tack tape, the kind of thing that you'd use for putting your dies, sticking your dies down, or even better, PTFE tape, which is what you wrap around radiator valves, and just cut a strip that's the depth of this thread area here, and just so that it wraps around once and it doesn't overlap. And that will just put enough pressure on that thread to stop it moving, because I still get people contacting me about that. And it's nothing that they can't do anything about it, it's just the vibration of the machine. And because they wanted you to have so much scope with the blade depth, that's why they did it on a thread. And then once you've done that with a brand new blade in it, if you're using one, if you've used it already, it will be slightly different. I want you to put the number under the Brother logo to between 4 and 5, like that, so 4.5, and put this into your machine. So to do that, you lift the grey bar that's on the front of your blade housing. I'm going to wait for Andrew to get the right camera, because we've got loads of cameras going on. This one here, and lift that up, drop your blade in so that the Brother logo is facing forward, and just drop that into there, and then push the bar down, and you'll hear a little click like that. Okay, so you push that down, and then your blade is in place. All right, so we've all got the same blade depth. Then your screen, you lifts up in 3 different levels. So you lift it up, you've got 1, 2, 3. If you want to put it down, you pull it forward, and then it drops down. So don't lift your screen up like that, because it'll just keep dropping down, okay? So any one of those 3 levels, depending on where the light is, it will work. And then this bit at the front, I tend to keep closed until I'm cutting, because A, it keeps the inside of the machine clean. And instead of working like this, where you're stretching to meet the screen, you can get in close to the screen and rest your hand on here. That's just what I find comfortable. On the right-hand side of your machine, as I'm looking at mine now, you will have a USB port. So if you're designing something and you want to save it onto a USB, we sell blank USBs now on the Highlight Crafts website, which are compatible with your ScanNCut. So if you're doing an update on a CM600 or a 300, you need a blank compatible USB. We sell them now on the website, which is brilliant. It's also for if you're buying things like Tattered Lace USBs or 2 Red Robin USBs as we go down the line. Your USB port is in every single machine. So it doesn't matter whether you've got the first one or the most recent one, you've all got it. The next thing that we're going to do is switch this on. So there's a little power button here, universal symbol for power. Top left corner of your actual screen unit here, and you literally just need to press it, okay? And it will light up your screen. The Brother logo will then appear. And once this appears, you can then press the home button and go to the home screen. So the one that looks like the house is your home button. So you literally switch it on, press the home button. It will tell you that it's going to move this carriage with the blade in to the correct position for it to start cutting. So keep your hands out the way. And you need to tell it when you've read that instruction, because as good as it is, it can't read your mind. It doesn't know when you've read it. So we press OK. So we press OK, and it does exactly what it says, is initializes that unit, and it puts that blade into position. So the next thing I want to look at with you is this button here, because this is your settings. So this is where all your tools are behind here, and this is important. So we're going to click on the spanner. Wait for Andrew to get to that camera. Bear with us. Go. He's like that. All the buttons. So we've now got our spanner. So our toolbox is now open. All right. So we've got the language that it gives you the instructions in, which I should imagine most of us will have in English. You've got the unit of measurement, so you can have it in inches, and you'll know which one it's in because it's lit up purple. So you've either got inches or millimeters, and you switch between the two simply like that. It's that easy, okay? You don't need to go anywhere else. You just do it there. Your cut area, if I click on that, is your mat size. So you can change from a 12 by 12 mat to a 12 by 24 inch mat. But then there's different measurements here. So you're like, let me just go back to, I'm going to put this back into inches because it's easier for me to show you this. So although the mat is 12 by 12, the cutting area, the cutting capacity on that mat is 11.73 inches by 11.65. Okay, so that's this white area that is on your mat. So you've got your mat, you've got a black box that goes on the mat, and then on the inside you've got a grid. That's the cutting capacity that you've got on your 12 by 12 mat. You can change it to a 12 by 24 inch mat if you want to. That will then enable you to load the 12 by 24 and cut on it. You can cut on a 12 by 24 inch mat on every single ScanNCut that we've ever sold you on Create and Craft. There's this whole thing going around that you can only use 12 by 24 inch mats on some machines. You can cut on all of them, but you can only scan them in some of them. All right, so that dispels that myth. You can use a 12 by 24 inch mat in every single ScanNCut. I can't remember the last time I scanned in a 12 by 24 inch mat, because you've got to have as much room at the back of the machine as you have at the front. And I don't use a 12 by 24 inch mat very often. I tend to use the 12 by 12s, but you may be different. So you can absolutely use the 12 by 24 on all your CM machines. So I'm going to press the cross. I'm going to put it back to 12 by 12 and press the cross. So that's one way of using your cut area. Another way of using it is if you've got a smaller piece of card. So let's say you've got a 6 by 6 piece like that. You can set your cut area to 6 by 6 or thereabouts. So let's make it a little bit more like it. And then when you put your shapes onto your mat, it will only put the shapes in that place. If this part of your mat gets worn out, you can move that cut area and you can have it over here, or you can have it down here, or you can have it over here, or you can have it in the middle. So you can have that cut area wherever you want it. So you might have a piece of graphic 45 paper that's got all the squares on it, the beautiful designs, and you just want to use part of it. That's how you can do it. You can do it by scanning the paper in and positioning them so you can see the paper, but let's say that you've got a band across there that you want to cut out. Rather than you moving the shapes into a certain area, if your cut area is set like this, it will automatically put them there. So it's a quicker way of doing it. So it's worth knowing that bit. And I'm not going to go through all the buttons because I'm just going to teach you a little bit. So we're going to press OK. Your background here is for when you're scanning. So if you're scanning in a light piece of card, say a pale pink, and you want to see it clearer, you can make the background darker and it will intensify the colour of that background. If you're scanning in something dark and you want to make it lighter, you press that button and it makes it lighter. So it knocks the colour back on the card that's on your mat, therefore on your screen, so you can see the shapes better. So that's when you would use your background. One here tells you this is page 1 of 8. So you know there's 8 pages worth of settings here. So we go down now, your cut speed. Now, I don't care what anybody else tells you. I want you to put your speed on 5 and never, ever, ever change it. And the reason for that is many, many, many years ago, I was introduced to the man who invented the cricket machine. And he came to see us because I worked for a company called Bramwell's and we distributed the cricket in the UK. And he said, the quicker the speed, the better the cut. And I went, really? Because I didn't like that. I do like to question things because I like to know why. I said, how does that work? Because in my head, the slower it cuts, the more precise it is. He said, it's the opposite. So if you think about an industrial saw cutting a big log, or even a sewing machine, if you do it slowly, it tends to judder. If you do it quickly, you get a really smooth finish. So I have always, no matter what cutting machine I've used, always had my cut speed on the full, and I've never changed it, and it's never failed me. So if you want to do the same thing that I do, your speed goes on 5 and you never change it. It's as simple as that. Now, the one thing that most people worry about with a CM machine is the blade depths and the blade pressures. So we're going to address that right now. If you have a brand new blade, and for most cardstock, so I would say from 200 up to 280, your pressure can be on 0 with a brand new blade. The pressure is the force that the machine puts on the blade. So if you've got your blade set on 4.5 and you're cutting through something that's slightly thicker, you might want to put a pressure on of 1, and it will just put that little bit extra pressure on top of that blade as it's cutting and force it to cut through that thicker card. So the thinner the card, the less pressure you need. The thicker the card, it's not always about pressure. And this is the thing that people get mixed up with. So I want you to think about when you're cutting with a craft knife. So imagine this is your mat and this is your craft knife, okay? When you use a craft knife, you have to put the craft knife through the card and cut, and it cuts from underneath. So it cuts through. If you don't get right through the card, it drags it. It's exactly the same with this blade. So think about this as a craft knife. So what I do, and I still do it now occasionally, even though I probably know all the pressure settings in the world. When you might not be able to see this on camera, but when you've got your blade in front of you, the higher the number you go to, the further out that blade comes. All right, so at 12, it's probably about 1.5 mil out. And as you go back down, it disappears into the blade housing, okay? So sometimes if I'm stuck and I think, I don't know what that needs, I take the piece of card and I put it at the top like that. And if I can see the blade over the top, I know that it's going to cut it because it's deep enough to go through that card, okay? So I butt it up to the blade there, and then I have a quick look and I go, oh yeah, I can see that through there. So you can always drop it down a little bit if you want to, so you're not putting as much blade depth on. Use your pressure as a last resort. So you don't need to force the blade through, because it doesn't, if that blade there isn't deep enough to go through that card, it doesn't matter how much pressure you put on it, it's not making the blade longer, it's just forcing it through. And that's when you'll start to have problems. So we use our blade depth first, which is the numbers that are around here. So if you go into a thicker card, you're going to up the blade depth first. If you get into a blade depth of 9, 10, 11, and you think it's still not cutting through, drop the blade down and increase the pressure then. It is physically impossible to have your pressure on 1 and your blade on 5 and cut through that mat. It's physically impossible, because that blade is not, first of all, not down far enough to cut through. It doesn't have any fibres in it to tear. So it's physically, it's a dense plastic. So I promise you, if you have your pressure on 1 and your blade depth on 5, you cannot cut through that mat. So that's what I want you to do to practice. But if you straight out of the box, start with your pressure on 0 and your blade depth between 4 and 5 with a new blade. It doesn't rely on the back pressure to force that blade through. It relies on the quality of the blade. And it's a really good blade, a really good blade. So that's the pressure and the blade depth. Don't be scared, okay? Do the little card thing where you put it against it. So maybe cut a little square out and put it against your blade. As long as you can see that blade through that card, it will cut it, okay? So I'm going to put my blade back in now because we've done that bit. Draw speed and draw pressure we'll come to when we get to the drawing. Auto shutdown. So if you're working in your craft room and you've done your cutting bit and then you go on to do all your crafty stuff and you're building your projects, etc., it will switch it off within an hour. So electricity saving, etc. You can increase it to 4 hours. I don't bother with that because I have it on 1, so that A, if I forget, it shuts down after an hour. But B, when you switch it back on, if you're halfway through a project, it will ask you if you want to recall that project, so you haven't lost anything. So you might as well have it on 1 hour, unless you're using it constantly for the day, because you're not going to waste anything by having it on 1 hour. The little buzzer sound that you have, that noise, that one, that drives people bonkers, or I love it because it tells me that I've actually pressed a button, you can put on or off. So if it's off, it's silent. If it's on, you get that little beep. I quite like that little beep, but it drives some people crazy. So whichever you prefer. Your seam allowance will come to at a later date. And your pattern interval is the distance between the shapes. So if you asked it to put 3 circles on a mat, it would put them as close to each other as it could to get the most out of your cardstock. If you wanted more of a distance between those shapes, so maybe you're creating an embossing file or you're creating a stencil and you want a distance between the shapes, or you're creating a rosette and you're using the perforation line, you can set a wider distance between those shapes by increasing the number on the pattern interval. And have a little play with that. So maybe ask it to draw a circle, a little circle, and do 5 of them at pattern interval 1, and then do 5 again at pattern interval 2, and go through the process. So you'll gauge the distance between the shapes. Maybe that's something that you want to do. The opening screen you can have on or off. Mine's just always on. The scanning cutting position adjustment will come to at a later time, and all these extra ones we will also come to. This one is your unique serial number. So this is the number of your machine. So if you rang Brother and said there's something wrong with the machine, that number they would know has been sold to a Create and Craft customer. All right, so then they would know that it's your machine. The version that you're working on, so when Brother first bought out the CM machines, they did free updates and have continued to do free updates. And you update your machine if it's not a Wi-Fi enabled machine. So if you're working on a CM300 or a CM600, you go to a place called Brother Solutions Centre UK. And that's, you just type it into a search engine. So Brother Solutions Centre UK. Make sure it's the UK one, because the US have different models to us. And you will tell it will ask you which machine you've got. So you'll go to cutting machines and you'll tell it which model you've got. And then it will talk you through the process of updating your machine. And it will give you an update that you put onto a USB. It needs to be blank. So you can't put it on a USB that's got anything else on it. It needs to be blank. We sell them on the Highlight Crafts website. Brilliant. And then you put the USB into your machine and your machine will update. It will talk you through the process. We're working on version 2.38. If you also go to Brother Solutions Centre, it will tell you what the current version is that's available. And if it's anything other than 2.38, it means you've got an update. So if it's a higher number than that, it means there's an update for your machine. The machine information here, so wherever there's a little spanner, there's something behind it, tells you what your machine is capable of. So the maximum scanning area is 12 by 24. So you can use a 12 by 24 inch mat on the CM700. The maximum pattern number is 600. So it can cut a maximum of 600 shapes at one go. However, if you group those 600 shapes together and you've got enough room on your mat, it then sees it as one. So let's say you want to do 1,800 little hearts for shaker cards. You could have 600 on your mat, group that together, and then duplicate that 600 3 times, and then walk away and the machine would do all that work for you. It's quite satisfying doing that, I have to say. It tells you that it's Wi-Fi enabled, so that's available, and it does not read the embroidery applique files, so it tells you that you can't use this in conjunction with a Brother embroidery machine. The 600 patterns can also come into play when you're buying SVG files. So when you're buying files from an external source. When we do our files, so for 2 red robins, tattered lace, anything else that we bring you on a USB, we always test all the files on the CM300 to make sure that they all open, because it won't open a file that has too many lines in it or too many shapes in it. So when the designer is designing a shape, let's say they're doing a square, they'll go from that point to that point, that point to that point, that point to that point, that point to that point. Each one of those is a path. So the lower spec models read up to 300 paths or lines or shapes. So we make sure that all our USBs are checked and opened on a CM300. So it doesn't matter which machine you own, you can use all the USBs that we bring you. So that's your machine information. We scroll down, this is your network. So if you're working on a machine, which is a CM700 or CM900, they are Wi-Fi enabled. So you'll click on this, I like the way it says, please wait a while. And then you switch, it will be switched off. Your Wi-Fi will be switched off. So you switch it on, and then you go to Setup Wizard underneath. And in Setup Wizard, it will ask you for your password for your Wi-Fi. You'll find that on the back of your router. I spent ages trying to work out where that password was. And then I said to my husband, where's the password? I need a password. He's like, it's on the back of the router. I'm like, what's a router? Didn't even know it was a thing until I got the ScanNCut. Now I do. So once you've put in your code, it will then link to your Wi-Fi. Every time you come to link to your network again, it will automatically find it for you. So if I click on Highlight Crafts now and press OK, it's going to ask me for the network code, and you type it in there. And it has uppercase and lowercase. So it comes up with uppercase. To get to lowercase, you click on that. And to get to any numbers, you click on that. And to get to any symbols, you click on that. So it's really intuitive and quite obvious as to where you go and what you do. So that's your Wi-Fi network. The next page down is Canvas Workspace, which I'm not even going to go into for a while because it is amazing, but you need to learn the basics first, which kills me because I love it and I want to show you all the things that it'll do, but I can't because I've got to be good. And then your premium functions. So if you've bought anything like an embossing kit or a foiling kit, anything like that, any extra accessories that come in a box with the kit, you need to switch them on your machine. And even if you don't own them, you can switch them on if you want to, but it just gives you, that's why you do it. So if you see some people with extra options when you get to cut, it's because they've got the premium functions. So that's all your settings. So let's make a cut. This is the time where we make our first cut. So patterns, click on that, and you've got all this information behind here. This is telling you that this machine will link to the cloud, which is for Canvas, so don't even worry about it. This is where you do a little test cut. So if you're not sure if the setting that you've put your blade depth on is enough, or if it's too much, you can do a little test cut. So you select one of these shapes, you put your piece of card on, and it will go and do a little test cut for you, okay? Save data. is when you're bringing something in that you've saved in the machine's memory, you've saved back to your computer, which you can do on some of them, but it's a bit of a faff, and then you've got to save it, copy and paste it again. So I don't even worry about that. Or save it to a USB. Okay, so you can do all those different things. And then you've got all your basic shapes, images and icons, welded words and phrases, borders, alphabets, and quilt blocks. So when I looked at that and I went, is that it? Is that all I've got? I was like, no, Melanie, press the button. So click on basic shapes. You've got 10 pages of basic shapes here. And all of these you can cut from teeny, teeny, tiny to as big as your mat will allow. Okay, so you've got all these different shapes. I brought out a USB probably about 2 months ago now called Made from the Memory, where we made 10 projects from all the shapes that are from a minute amount of all the shapes that are in your machine's memory. So we've got a long way to go with that yet. And absolutely, when you look at something, everything is made up of shapes. So once you understand how the machine sees it and how it works, you start to break things down. And you walk around shops and you go, I can make that on my ScanNCut. Well, I don't need to buy that stencil, I can do it on my ScanNCut. And it starts to create things like tools for you, which is super exciting. This is all your images and icons. Each one of these, when you click on, there are more shapes behind. This tells you how many pages of those shapes there are. Just like that, you can resize them. This one, again, if you choose the iron here, for example, you can change the size of the iron that you want it to be at the end. When you press OK, it breaks it down into the 3 parts for you. And then you put each one of these, shows you where it is on the pattern, and then it will put it on the mat for you. And then you will cut that out of your appropriate piece of card. So everything's thought about. The one thing that Brother are really, really good at is logic. They think about logical things. You know, how do I get that to do that in the simplest way possible? So go back into basic shapes. I'm going to select the square. Each shape will have a code. So BA stands for basic, and then it starts at A001, A002, A003. So as we get more advanced in the classes, we'll then start to do a little project, and I will tell you which file you'll need by that code. So it's important that you start to look at those as well. So let's just bring on a square. Now I think that this CM machine is easier to navigate than the SDX because everything's on one screen. So it's super easy, okay? So we've got our square, we've got our height and our width. To make it bigger, you press the plus. To make it smaller, you press that. Now, I'm just going to check one thing on here just before I carry on, because we've got this going on and the size is disappearing as we go through it. And I have to remember, because it's a while since I've used a CM machine, I have additional line. And have we got additional line on here? Yes, we have. Right, so the reason that those, when you saw me change that size, the size disappeared as it was changing. And it's because we had an additional line on for drawing. So if yours is doing that, just go in and take the additional line off. And that's because when you've got additional line is where you can make a line thicker by adding another line that goes around the outside. So when you're changing the size, it's thinking about changing both of them, so the size disappears. So if you've got that, see if you look now, oh, it's doing it again. Why is it doing that now? Maybe it just does it on the CM and I've forgotten. Maybe that's what it is. I'll work it out. Remember, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll go, that's why it does it. And I'll tell you next time. So we can set this on the mat now, if we want to, and we can move this around. So you can have any square from teeny, teeny, tiny. Something else on there. There's another line on there. I can see it. I need to speak to Amanda and see what she's got set. So you can go from teeny tiny to really, 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 really big. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home screen again and start this bit from scratch so I can take you through the rest of that screen. So make it bigger or smaller. The number is the quantity. So the amount of shapes. So if that was me, I wouldn't call it a number, I'd call it quantity. So now you know that you can have all those different sizes or all those different quantities. If you then set it on the mat and it won't fit, it'll tell you that it can't fit them. All right, so then it will tell you to reduce the number or reduce the size. So along here, we've got seam allowance, which we're not going to worry about at the moment. We've got flip, so you can flip a shape. We've got rotate, and then we've got this button. So the only one that we're going to look at tonight is this one, because this is brilliant, and this is unlock aspect ratio. So if you want to make that square into a rectangle, you can do it by stretching it like that. It'll get to a certain size, and then it'll drop down and look smaller on your screen because it can't make it bigger on the screen because of the screen size. So you can separate the height. So I can make that taller or shorter without making it narrower. I can make it narrower without making it taller or shorter. So you are in complete control of that shape. You can have it whatever you want in millimeter increments. So let's just take it back to, unlock it again, let's take it back to 4 inches square. I need to work this bit out because it's annoying me that I can't see that number. I can't remember why I can't see it, but I will work it out, and I'll put a little message on our page to let you know, because there's something, what it is, there's something that's switched on that shouldn't be switched on. I'll work it out. So when we're done to this, we get to set. So when you're finished on a screen, so we want to cut this now, but there's no cutting label on there at all. So there's no icon to cut it. So when you're finished on a screen, there will always be a blue box in the bottom right-hand corner that says set or OK. So we're going to set this onto our mat. And now you've got your virtual mat here, like that, okay? So we've now got our square on our mat. So all we want to do now is cut it. But there's nothing on that screen that says cut. So you press OK, and now there's something on your screen that says cut. So when we go to cut, it's processing that information, and now you can start to cut. Behind here, there is a little toolbox again. I'm going to take my cut pressure down to 0 because I don't know how old this blade is, but I'm going to try it on the settings that I've told you. And then you've got a fill pattern, you've got line spacing, you've got fill direction, and you've got additional line spacing. So I'm just going to drop that back down as well. That's why that additional line, bear with, that additional line had come off. That's why it's doing it, Melanie. Right, this is what I do all the time. So fill an additional line. See, let's put it back to 0 again. Right. I think it's not allowing me. Oh, no, it is. Look. So now I've taken that additional line off. Look, you can see the size. I knew it was that. I just forgot to take it off because I probably didn't press OK. It's always you and not the machine, and don't take that offensively, but it is. It really is. Now, the difference between a CM and an SDX is when you are resizing something, when it hits the corner or the side of a mat on a CM, it stops and it won't go any bigger. So if you've got your square there and you think, right, I want it 5 inches and that doesn't move, it's because you have to move it away. So it's like you standing in a corner of a room and me asking you to put your arms out. You can't. You have to move away from that corner to be able to put your arms out. I have all these weird analogies that you'll come to know and love as we go through these classes. Once I've moved it away, I can then make it bigger and I can make it smaller. Okay? Now, if you have any questions at all, which I'm sure there will be loads, because I would have loads, and I'm giving you a lot of information. We've just had the same with the SDX. So you can email me, which is mel@highlightcrafts.com, or you can email me and we'll collate, or you can put your questions in this chat. We'll collate all the questions, and mid-month, Andrew and I will do an hour session where I answer all the questions. Because if one person's asking it, 50 people might be asking it, and that's a lot of emails. So I think what we'll do is we'll collate all the emails, and then we will do a video which will go on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch it and it will answer all your questions, okay? But in this class, what we're going to do is make our first cut. So you've got a mat. Again, this is different to an SDX mat. I like this mat better because you can load it in from both sides. The reason that the SDX mat has a hole in one side and you can only load it in one way is because worldwide survey, some of the customers wanted to be able to hang the mats up to keep them flat. Personally, I'd rather have a mat that loads in both ways. So if you damage one side, you can turn it round and load it in the other. Go figure. Sometimes I think, and I'm going to say this out loud and I might get in trouble, but sometimes I think that these big companies think that the only country in the world is America. That's all I'm going to say. So you then are going to, so when you've got a brand new mat that is super sticky, don't burnish it down with a scraper or your spatula because you won't get it off. When your mat is losing its tack, and it will lose its tack, and it will lose it quite quickly because every time you put a piece of card on and take it off, it leaves fibres behind. If you leave the plastic coating off and you've got glitter and embossing powder and dust and cat hair and dog hair and all the other stuff that goes around in the air, it will attract it to a mat because plastic creates static and it attracts stuff to it. You can retack your mat with pinflare stencil glue. When we do that monthly review of the questions, I will show you how to retack your mat because I went to Brother and I went, customers aren't using the machines, your mats aren't sticky enough. And they said exactly what I knew they'd say, and they're right. If we make it stickier, you won't get the card off. I'm like, I know, but customers aren't going to use your machine because the mats don't stay sticky long enough. Can we use this? So I'd gone and I'd researched the pinflare stencil glue. I went to them with a solution and went, can we do this? And they went, yes, okay. They weren't happy about it, but they wouldn't have been happy if nobody used the machine either. So it's one of those. So once you've got your mat, your card on your mat, and I do tend to use a solid core card. So what I mean by that is when you tear it, it's the same colour all the way through because white core card is made with chalk and chalk is abrasive and it will blunt your blades. If there's loads of you out there, keep emailing me every week going, what's happened to American Crafts cardstock? Nothing's happened to it. It's just with the merger, everything's all still a little bit up in the air because it's been absolutely crazy bonkers. We have sourced, we found the factory that the American Crafts card comes out of. So we've bought a load, and instead of doing it in spring, summer, autumn, winter, we're doing it in colour families. So blues, greens, pinks, yellows, reds, purples, because as a crafter, I have my favourite colours. And I was always running out of greens and yellows and pinks, but I had loads of oranges and browns left over. So it will be coming, it won't be for a few weeks, but we will be doing them in packs and we will be selling them on Highlight and on Create and Craft. So that's good because I was getting a little bit like that, a bit agitated because I didn't have my American Crafts cardstock. Right, so the next thing we do is open up the machine. It doesn't matter which way you load your mat, but you're going to put it up to the rollers here and you're going to keep hold of your mat. And that's really important because if you let go of your mat and one side stays against the roller and the other side comes away from it, when I press load, that roller is going to take that mat in and it's going to load it like that. And you don't want that. So you put your mat up to your rollers, keep hold of it. You don't need to push it like that. Just keep hold of it nice and gently. And then you're going to press this button on your screen, which is load mat. So it looks like the mat. It's got the grid on of the mat. Andrew will get the camera to it in a minute. And then it's trying. I'm trying. Press the button. Then you've got an arrow going in and an arrow going out. So you press that button and it loads the mat, okay? Like that. Now, all we're going to do is cut this. So there's no cut symbol on there. So we're going to press OK. There's no cut symbol on there either. So we're going to press OK. There's nothing on there that says cut. So we're going to press OK again. And now we've got our cut. So now we're going to press cut. If at some point you think, oh, I need to change the pressure, I forgot, you can pause it. So it's got a plainer pause, like the old tape recorders that used to press down on Sunday night at 5 o'clock to take the charts. It's got a plainer and a pause. You can pause it at any time and it will stop cutting. So don't panic. If your card starts moving or something goes wrong, just press pause. But you can also go in and you can change your cut pressure and your speed and all the rest of it. So we're just going to press go. Now, I don't know if this setting is going to cut through this card or not, because I don't know how old that blade is, because it's Amanda's machine, but we'll soon find out. Right, so now it's cut your shape. So we've now got a perfect square, cut out, pristine. If we want a perfect matte layer for that, we just make it a little bit bigger. If we decide that we want one a bit smaller, we just make it a bit smaller. So the number of dies that you would have to buy, square dies, to match the number of options you've got on this machine is 295. 295, and that just covers the squares. That's a lot of dies, and it's a lot of storage that you would need. So instantly, this machine, so let me see if I can remember, CM300 and 600 has 601 images in. 601, 602, 601. The CM700 has 631. And the CM900 has the same, I think, 631. I might be wrong. It's a long time since I've done the CM machines. Something else that's going around, rumour, you know, these rumours that spread on social media. Brother are categorically not discontinuing the mats and the blades and the accessories for the CM machines. They've discontinued the CM machines apart from the 300. But they are not discontinuing the accessories that go with it. So just don't be worried about that. They're keeping the mats and the blades and everything else going. So that's good. Right, so we've made our first cut. So we press OK and we unload with the same button that we're loaded with. So we've now got our first cut. So I want you to practice that, because we're going to send you the link for this class so you can watch it over and over and over again. And I want you to do that before the next time, because I have no problem staying and doing all these classes for free, but I want you to get your machine out of the box, please. Please. I'll get down on my knees and beg you if I have to, because and it's not because I want you to buy more mats and I want you to buy this and I want you to buy that. It's because I want you to get the most out of that money that you spent. I don't want anybody spending a few £100 and it's sitting there in the box, because it's brilliant. And I want everybody on this journey. And I actually don't think I have ever felt as passionate about a craft product ever in the, decades that I've been doing this, as I do about this machine, because it's just brilliant. And it just makes me sad when people aren't using it, because you can use it, you won't break it, you won't cut through your mat if you use those settings, because it's physically impossible. And I need you to be brave and just have a go, okay? So other thing I want to teach you today is how you weld two shapes together. So I've decided now that I don't want that square anymore. So all I'm going to do to get rid of it is press the home button, and it tells me, am I okay to delete all patterns? That's scary, because you think, am I going to delete the square? It's physically impossible to delete any of the shapes that are pre-installed into the machine's memory, okay? You can't do it. So this is just deleting the pattern off the screen that you've been using. So we're going to press OK, and it takes us back to our main screen. So now what we're going to do is make a shaped card. So let's go into our patterns and back into our basic shapes, and let's choose a scallop circle. So we're going to scroll down until we get to the scallop circle. I want it to be 4.25 inches. If I'm thinking, right, well, I might want that in millimeters, I can go into here and I can switch to millimeters and press OK, and it changes it to millimeters on the screen. So it's super simple. You think, right, I need to change the size. It's not on here, so I can resize there, but I want to do it, I want it in millimeters or inches. How do I do that? Because that's not on there. You go to the toolbox, because that gives you the tool to be able to change the increment of measurement. When you're done, you're going to set it on the mat. Now, you can either put 2 in there and it will put 2 on the mat for you, or you can set it on the mat, and then this button here is where you access all the other images and icons. So this one is a scanner. This one is how you arrange the shapes on the mat. We'll talk about that later on, probably next month. This one is where you access this screen. So then you can put it in the bin, you can move it with directional arrows, and this is your resize. But I have to say on the CM, so when I go into that, that's that screen that we've already had up. So you might as well do it at the point of when you've selected the shape, than go through all the rigmarole of going through that. You might as well just do it on that screen, because that's exactly the same screen as the one that we had before. So now in number, I'm going to put 2 and I'm going to press OK. And now it's given me 2 shapes, and I can move both of those. The only one that's selected is the one that's got the red square around it. So if I click on that one, it then selects that one. Click back on that one, it then selects that one. And your stylus just moves it around that screen. So I want to weld these two together. Now, welding is gluing, digitally gluing something. So I'm going to put that one in the top corner there, and then I'm going to move that one up to the side of it like that. You can either then overlap it like that by using your stylus, or you can go into your directional arrow buttons and you can move it backwards and forwards, up and down. Every time you press one of these little arrows, it moves it by 1 millimeter. And that doesn't necessarily matter for this, but when you're nudging things to be really precise, or you're measuring something, or you're moving it 6 spaces across and 6 spaces up to get it in a certain position, the best information I can give you is that it's 1 millimeter. If you're somebody that has a CM and an SDX, the SDX moves it in 0.5 millimeter increments. But the CM, all of them, move it in 1 millimeter. So this little button here is your magnifying glass. So you can zoom in to 200%, but then you can zoom in again to 400%. And then these arrows here move your screen up and down like that. So you can't move the shapes when you're in zoom mode. You haven't got the directional arrow buttons, which you have on the SDX, but you can zoom right in. So you can see now that it's overlapped there. If you imagine 2 pieces of card, you can't glue them together without overlapping them. 2 pieces of fabric, you can't sew them together without overlapping them. So they have to be overlapped when you're welding them. So once we're happy where we've got the positioning, we're going to press OK and come out. And again, we've finished on this screen, so we press OK again. 1 red square there means that one of those shapes is selected. So more than 1 red square means we're going to select more than 1 shape. So we're going to multiple select. Now you've got options. You've got all the shapes that are on the mat, or some of the shapes that are on the mat. So let's say, for example, if I just go back and I ask it to do another one of those. So we've now got 3 shapes down here. I'm going to highlight one of the ones that I want to work with and weld. And then when we multiple select, if we do part of the mat, because we just want to glue those 2 together, but not this one, because this one's going to stick over the top and cover that horrible side that you get with a shaped card, so it looks nice and neat and tidy. When you drag over a shape like that, even the smallest amount like that, because it can't see it then as a full shape, it ignores it. So you don't have to do this. You can literally just go over the edge of that shape. And when I press OK, it will only highlight those 2. And then we press OK because there's no weld on here. And we go to this button here. And it looks like a keyhole, and I know it looks like a keyhole, but it's actually a triangle that's been glued or welded to a circle. So that is weld. So we're going to weld those 2 together. So it says, are you okay to weld it? Because if you are, we'll do it now. If you're not happy, you can cancel it, because once you've welded it, you can't reverse it. So I'm happy with that, so I'm going to press OK. So now I've got my shaped card, and I've got the piece that's going to cover up that unsightly edge. But I've got a piece of card that's got a big square cut out of it at the moment. So I'm going to scan it in so we can get the most out of this mat. And this is what I want you to practice between now and the next month. Now, I know that if you've used your ScanNCut, you're thinking, well, I know all this, Mel. I know. But once upon a time, you didn't. And we have to start right at the beginning. And I find it as frustrating as you do, because I've got so much stuff that I want to teach you, and all for free, which is great. But I've got so much stuff that I want to teach you. It's really hard for me to rein myself in, but I'm trying really, really hard. So This is how we're going to do it. So again, we're going to load the mat in, making sure you keep hold of that mat, and we're going to scan this in so that you can see on the screen where this, it'll bring on a full colour image of this piece of card on this mat, and then you'll be able to see the available space, and then you'll be able to get the most out of it. So there's no scanner on this screen, so we press OK, and your scanner is here. So it's this blue bar with that bar going across, because the scanner does that, okay? So we're going to click on that, and we're going to press this. If this isn't lit up, it's because your mat's not loaded. All right, so if it says, if that doesn't light up and you're thinking, why is that not lit up? You haven't loaded your mat. So then we press start. And off it goes. And you know what? I'm going to be really honest. Well, I've always been honest with you about the ScanNCut, but there is nothing that you cannot do with a CM600 or 300, the lowest, the first ever machines, and Canvas Workspace, which we will come to because we'll do classes on that you can do on an SDX. There's nothing that you can't do. So when people come to me and say, do I need to upgrade to an SDX? The answer is no, you don't need to. You might want to, and that's your choice, but you don't need to. Yes, it's quieter. It is quieter. I'm not going to lie to you. It is whisper quiet. But if that doesn't bother you, honestly, there's one extra little button, which is an offset line, but you can do that in Canvas Workspace. And Canvas Workspace, I was like, no, I'm not doing it, never looking at it, don't want to know, hate it, no, it's computer. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's easy to use, and we will get to that. But for now, do you need to change? Absolutely not. When your machine gets a little bit weary, or it might be ready for a service or something, then maybe, you know, the cost of that, you might think, well, I might as well buy another machine, but you don't have to. Now, the reason we're getting stripes down here, if you ever see this on your machine, and Amanda will get told off tomorrow, it's because the scanner's not cleaned. You need to keep your scanner clean. So I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to show you how to clean your scanner because it's super quick. So I can see now that I've got this white area where that square was, and then I've got all this space here. So I can now move this and cut this out and know that I'm not going to overlap that square. I'm just going to move that over here because I can't actually see where that square finishes because of that line down the scanner. It is important that you keep your scanner clean, okay? So we're going to press start, and it's now going to cut that out for me. And then the last thing we'll do is I'll show you how to clean your scanner. So questions, mel@highlightcrafts.com. I can imagine I'm going to go out of here and my phone's going to go ping, 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 ping. We will, if it's really quick and simple, I'll email you back directly. If I'm getting the same question a lot, we'll do a video in probably couple of weeks' time, halfway through between the two classes, and we'll put it on YouTube, and then we'll let you know that we've put it on there, because otherwise I might be answering 100 people with the same question. My voice is starting to go now, so we've done 6 hours of teaching today, so I've spoken solidly for 6 hours. So tomorrow I'm going to be like, I'm back on air on Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday. So we've now got our shaped card, which is joined together in the card that you want, in the colour that you want, in the weight that you want, in the size that you want, which is super exciting. And then we've got a perfect scallop circle that will go over the top and create a perfect shaped card with that horrible join covered up, so it looks really, really, really professional. So you've now got your shaped card. Right, cleaning your scanner, because that's important. Switch your machine off completely and unplug it just by pressing the power button. And then you're going to take the wire out of the back. You don't want the electricity running through it. And I'm always aware that I know it's switched off, but you never know. It's just a thing I have. And you're going to put your screen flat. You're then going to flip your machine upside down. And here, on this side here, there's a little clip. And you pull that clip over towards the bar, and it lifts out like that. And inside there is your scanner. Right, I'm going to show you this. Can you see? Look at this here. Oh, can you see? Someone's going to get a telling off tomorrow. Look at this. We've got paper, we've got sticky stuff, we've got all sorts going on this scanner. Look at that. That's terrible, Amanda. I'm going to tell you off. It's not just Amanda, there's quite a few of them use it, to be fair. So any stray bits of paper, you don't want them in your machine. So make sure that you keep your machine nice and clean. Look after it, and it will look after you. But anything like this that you've got on here, I'm going to have to use a damp cloth. So damp microfiber cloth, damp, not wet. Give it a wipe and then dry it off with the dry one. And then just have a look round and make sure that you can't see any bits of marks, bits of adhesive, bits of scratches, and then it will keep it clean. And it's important because otherwise you do get those lines down your screen. Also, just give that a wipe as well. You don't need to do it every week. Just if you've been using it a lot, it's just, you know, it's just like, I don't know, servicing your car, I guess. And then that bar just clips back in. So make sure that you clean your scanner, I don't know, twice a year, something like that. Or if you're getting little bits of lines on it, or it's not picking something up properly. Or the other reason that you need to keep your scanner nice and clean is because when you put your mat in, it reads the registration marks and it knows which mat you're using. So it knows whether it's a scanning mat or a cutting mat. Scanning mat wise, we had a question on the SDX, do I need one? You need one if you want to scan in die cuts like tattered lace. Of course, you need to get permission first, which tattered lace give you, as do two red robins, as do Quirky Bird. But the scanning mat has no sticky on it and it doesn't have a grid on it. It's a clean mat. So it has a plastic sheet that lifts up, you put your die cut inside and you scan it in and you can save it on that machine on that mat into the machine's memory. So then you can resize it, scale it up and scale it down. It should be a one-off purchase if you look after it and keep it clean. There's a blue sticky band at the top that you can pull off. That helps it with colour recognition as well. And if you've got a CM300 or a CM600 and you have never taken it out of the box, please visit Brother Solutions Centre UK. I'm going to get Andrew to put it in the chat now. And go into there and go to downloads and have a look, and it will ask you for your machine. It will ask you which operating system you're working on your computer, and it will talk you through the download that you need to update your machine. You need a blank compatible USB stick. We sell them on Highlight Crafts. If you want to get one from somewhere else, if you search on the internet, compatible USB sticks for ScanNCut, it'll give you a whole list. It's literal. So if it says on there 8 gig, but it doesn't say 4 gig, don't buy a 4 gig because it won't work. But the ones we sell on Highlight we know work. You then pop your update onto that USB, you put the USB into your machine and you update it. It's really, really, really simple. Just have a look on YouTube how to update a machine. It will be there. We will do it in one of the classes, but if you want to do it now, that's it. Right, so between now and next month, I want you to have got it out of the box or dusted it off from the shelf or got it out from underneath the table. And I want you to practice making your first cut. I want you to make a shaped card and I want you to just familiarise yourself with that journey of resizing and making it smaller and bigger and just have a play with some of the buttons. Every time we do a class, even if it's a free class, we will give you a discount code for the website. Normally, because I've managed to get it approved, we'll give you a discount on Brother accessories, but we haven't got a lot in stock at the moment. And I thought if we do that and then you can't get them, that's going to be really frustrating. So what we've done is given you a discount code for the first 5 SVG USBs, which is the cutting file that the ScanNCut reads. Again, if you haven't done an update, it won't read it until you do. So if you've never got it out of the box, you need to do an update for 2 red robins. So you'll be able to go on and buy a USB that has 4 collections from 2 red robins on, plug it in, and you'll be able to do all the things that we do on those shows. 50% off. Can't do much better than that. So the code is MEL SVG. It's a very original code. MEL, MEL SVG 50. Okay? And that will give you 50% discount until Thursday night at 11:59. 8:59 p.m, so till midnight. So if you want to, great. If you don't want to, that's fine too. And I will see you back in a month's time. For those of you that are already on this journey, you probably won't have learned anything in this class, but I have to start at the beginning. So please bear with me. Please keep coming back, because we will send you every class. So you'll be able to build up all these classes. And then if you ever think, what did she say about welding? How do I do it? You can go back and watch the class. All right, so thank you very much for your company. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm now going to go and sit in a dark room and rock for a little bit like that and not speak for a few days and get my voice back. And I will see you all next month. Keep an eye out on our social media. We will let you know when the next class is, the date, the time, etc. And then you can register again and get the login code. And we will continue to do these classes until I've taught you everything I know. So we're good time. And I like doing it this time because everyone's home and they've all had your tea and you settle down. So we'll make it work around all of us, okay? So thank you very much. Take care. Have a fabulous week. And please join us on Create and Craft at 6 o'clock on Friday, because there's a presenter on with me and Stephanie guesting. God help them. Strap themselves in. See you at 6 o'clock on Friday. Take care.